I just spent some time in Costa Rica, which is part of the Blue Zone. If you look at the wealth disparity there, it's very apparent, but people are happy. And part of that is because they're surrounded by family and they're surrounded by this long tradition of enjoying nature as the definition of wealth. We live in a society where wealth is considered by your bank account. I think we're changing that dynamic.
In this episode of Seeking Wisdom, Wealth and Wellness, host Jonathan Satovsky engages in a thought-provoking conversation with futurist David Shing about the dynamic relationship between technology, nature, and personal well-being.
Welcome.
Wow, I don't know if the microphone appreciated that clap.
Wow, welcome. This is Jonathan Satovsky of Satovsky Asset Management, and I'm here on this special edition of Seeking Wealth, Wisdom, and Wellness, my first in-person chat.
Is this awkward for you, John?
No, it's good. It's good. I feel grateful. Little love. Now, this is going to be totally improv because I happen to be with one of the most creative people on the planet, and I couldn't help but try to improv our way through a little session here, a little half an hour session on wisdom, wealth, and wellness, because this guy is going to bring it like no other. I have no doubt. But to give a proper bio and an introduction, since you are considered like a futurist and a digital prophet, is what according to Wikipedia says, and you're known for innovative perspectives on emerging technology and potential impact on business and society, and you wouldn't even know that I'm actually reading this from AI as we speak, right?
No.
AI is actually introducing me the language. It's feeding me into my brain.
It's whispering into your inner ear.
He's worked with various major companies to help them understand digital transformation and adapting their strategies for the future.
Amen.
Shingy brings an energetic and unique approach to discussing tech trends, marketing in the digital age, and how humanity can proactively guide innovation to create positive change.
Whoa.
He's going to share with us today.
Wow.
His unconventional wisdom, which he normally does in talks and presentations around the globe.
Right.
I was blessed to first meet him in Thailand.
We were.
At Wonder Fruit.
Yep. That's like a whole year ago.
Actually, Wonder Barn. It was called Wonder Barn because it was like an iteration of Wonder Fruit.
Mm-hmm.
And I highly recommend if anyone has an opportunity to carve out a couple of days to listen to music, wisdom, healing, all good. Yeah. So without further ado, Shingy.
Hey, mate.
Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. And I think your podcast is awesome. You've had amazing people on this. The fact that we're here together in real life could be the start of you for an in-person. What do you think about that?
I like it.
So it's so awkward because our chairs are jammed up against each other and we're facing each other and normally you face forward. So you do whatever you want to do.
Okay,
now.
Good. We can look at the camera. We look at each other, whatever.
I love the premise of the W3s that you're thinking about and not Web3, but the idea of wealth and wisdom and wellness. If you look at those three overlapping archetypes, that's kind of the pancake of life right in the middle of that. And it's amazing how many people are trying to seek to understand how people want each one of those components to overlap into their life, right? And that's why I'm intrigued by your title. If somebody gets to meet you, there's something that's incredible is that you have this energy and this vivaciousness. You want to bring people into your personality just by the charisma of you having that big shit grin. But the thing that's amazing to me is that once you start to understand that you peel that persona off, this person has this incredible sort of Rain Man ability to help people with their wealth. But the thing that I'm intrigued by is that what do you personally feel about wellness? Because that is the gift of true wealth, is to have wellness, I believe. I just spent some time in Costa Rica, which is part of the Blue Zone. If you look at the wealth disparity there, it's very apparent, but people are happy. And part of that is because they're surrounded by family and they're surrounded by this long tradition of enjoying nature as the definition of wealth. We live in a society where wealth is considered by your bank account. I think we're changing that dynamic. I spend a lot of time with technology, which is fascinating, as you know, and everybody thinks that technology is going to make us younger. But in some instances, it actually gives you more anxiety to think about what you're measuring as opposed to less. So sometimes I like to pull it away because I feel like a tribal leader with all the technology that I have. If I wear it all, it's very bangly and I just want to get rid of it,
Let me ask you a question, because we were talking about this. We were blessed to actually have a walk in nature. Right. This is a Wednesday afternoon. We're in January 2024.
Mm.
And middle afternoon, we actually took a walk on the beach in nature. And we paused and we happened to see the glow of sun peering through the clouds and lights radiating down on New York City.
Yeah, we did.
With like, we both captured it. We just turned and paused and had a great appreciation for the epic beauty of nature that most people just running through New York City to the next destination are just tunnel vision blind to, right?
Mm.
And I think what you're saying about the blue zones, and I'm quite intrigued by this, we're talking about living a wealthy life.
Right.
You can live a much richer, wealthier life if you're in an environment that's healthy for your DNA and nature.
Right.
That's something I'm trying to raise the level of consciousness. Of course, people hire me to help them pile up more money.
Right.
But I want to help them really design a life of freedom so they can actually live a richer life. And a richer life isn't just monetarily richer, but spiritually, physically, mentally richer in a way. And I think that's a major component that we've struck upon today a bit. Yeah.
As long as you can unlock it. So I find that there are a lot of people who've definitely I'm surrounded by people that made a shit ton of money and God bless them. But are they happy in what they've done? And so for me, the wisdom of that wealth, it really comes down to, when was the last time they actually celebrated nature? I see a lot of people denature themselves from it.
Yeah.
Technology is certainly part of that. It's been part of my life for a long time, but I try and strip it away so I can get back to nature. But if you think about that vibration of what happens with the white noise of the city, the white noise of the environment that we try and scroll through, you lose the ability to look up. We're too busy looking down, and that's part of the problem. Now, getting back to sort of wealth and wisdom, what's amazing about that, though, is that if you've accumulated enough wealth to have that wisdom that allows you to be renatured, are they taking advantage of it? So was that walk that we went on today, was it the first walk you've been on today?
Yes.
Would you have gone on that walk if I wasn't here?
If I had my dog with me, no. I mean, I try. I actually am conscious about one of the habits to design a quality life. I've developed a little checklist of things that I try to do each day, and one of them is to spend a bit of time in nature. And so I might not have done the same depth of walk, but I would have spent some time in nature, outside, getting some vitamin D, getting fresh air, no matter how cold it is. Actually, I find, some people are like, it's too cold to go outside. I actually find it really invigorating.
Right. Me too.
The whatever air quality is, I just try to take it in, and it's part of the energy of the universe at that moment.
But that's not always the case, right? So there's a time you go through where you feel like the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning is not take 3 breaths of appreciation. You may just jump on your phone, figure out that need state is the urgency to get on with the day. I mean, I think there's something really interesting about becoming denatured. So when you come back into nature, there's this feeling of, I don't know whether I deserve to be in it and I need to move on to the next thing. But once you lean into that, there's something really powerful about that. Look, just to give you a sense of how crazy this is, there's 127 products launched per second in the Internet of Everything. Meaning there's lots and lots of technology at your disposal that's here to try and measure everything. Have you ever seen data? Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Okay, and you see it every single day in all the things that you do. But if you could think about your own data and all the things that your data provides, does it make you feel better or worse?
So it's interesting you said it, because I've actually spent a lot of time on this. See, I'm wearing this Aura ring, right?
The notification language.
And the Aura ring measures my sleep patterns. In the last couple of weeks, end of the year, I was a little under the weather, and my readiness level was like 25 to 50, really, really low. I was like really worn down. And then it consciously made me feel, it reinforced that wearing down feeling, but it also made me more aware that I needed to slow down to recover. Like, wait, I was going too quick. I got to slow down. I got to let my body recover. So in a way that I don't think when you first get the sniffles or when you first feel a little bug in your system, that we are always conscious of listen to your body, stop, slow down, rest, recover. So sometimes the technology tools might help. That being said, I like to turn off technology, take off all of my technology, all my tools, unplug, and I do it once a week. I try to do it once a week as a habit on Shabbat, for example, which is a Judaic ideology, which is thousands of years old. And it's like, wow, it's like the most sacred time and blessed time for me, because it's like it forces you to go back to nature, to turn off all technology. It's like, wow, I get one day a week to heal.
Yeah, and that it's bizarre you say one day a week to heal, because there's 7 of them.
Yeah.
So what are you doing the other 6? The other 6 is probably over subscribing to the influx of technology. Now, we're at the start of 24. We're moved into a world that's incredibly contentious. We are at a place where it is feelings over facts. And so what you're barraged with is all of this information that's coming to you, which is actually not enlightening you. So, I think there's this power to, I look around your office, mate, you couldn't have more books here. Your library is thick. And you've got all these incredible quotes on your desk. And what's incredible about this is that you're consuming knowledge in a way that is a reflection of others in some respects. And I'm not seeing you constantly scroll through your phone while we're together here this afternoon, which I think is probably dehumanizing you in some respects. So to absorb someone else's knowledge, to be able to read this literature around you, is going to make you far more sort of wealthy in that ability to understand wisdom, as opposed to skimming through life, which is what we're told. So when I look at a generation of kids today, whether you call them Gen Z or even, my daughter's in the generation Alpha. So that's the world that is the great screen generation. And the thing that's crazy about that is that I try and live in a screen-free environment.
Yeah.
Because I don't know whether it makes them any better. And so what I'm trying to do is balance, how does technology make you more human? Does it? Yeah. Great, more. If it doesn't, back away and get back to those arts and crafts. And what I mean by arts and crafts, I mean folklore, stories around a fire, the ability to read paper. That's the emerging technology that I care about. Not the things that are going to give you more and more data that you can't witness. And if you do witness it, you freak out, because I bet you once a week when you're told your screen time, you're probably like, oh my God, my screen time's up 25%. What's that about?
Way too much.
Way too much.
Are you familiar with I heard this many years ago, and I was really fascinated by the concept of biomimicry.
Mm.
Have you heard of biomimicry?
No.
So a tremendous amount of inventions are discovered through spending time in nature. The example, there was 2 examples, but one most prevalent example was a guy who was an engineer for the Japanese trains, the bullet trains.
Right.
They were frustrated because it made too much noise getting in, coming into the new station. It was like deafening. So he happened to be a bird watcher, and at night he went to his bird watching class, and he was studying this specific bird that has a really long, pointed beak that dips its nose straight in the water to fish without making a ripple in the water.
Mm.
So he was like, wow, this is interesting. What if we use that same tip for the front of the Japanese bullet trains? It increased aerodynamic efficiency. It increased, the speed, and it reduced the sound. It had a material impact on the design of future trains.
Amazing.
All from nature. And that's one, others are the shark skin on hospital doors so that you don't, regurgitate germs spreading from people grabbing door handles, all sorts of so reinforcing your point about spending time in nature and the importance of spending time in nature, not just for our own physical, mental, spiritual healing, but for commerce.
Well, and if you think about, for commerce, which is incredible, because I remember thinking of Japan, I remember visiting a palace where was it? It doesn't matter. It was outside of Tokyo. But it was one of the most amazing experiences I ever had, because as you enter the palace, you hear this squeaky floor. And I thought, oh, how rubbish is this? They haven't done any maintenance. It's not updated. And the guide at the time came up to me and said, look, you realize that this nightingale floor is an alarm. So back then, we would know if there was an intruder because they would squeak on the floor as they came to enter the palace. You think about those conscious designs today, if you think about even, I'll give you an example. Do you know who invented while we're staying in Japan, who invented the toothpick?
No.
The Japanese. You ever notice a toothpick has a little barbell at the top of it? You know what that's for?
No.
It's by design. And the design is you break it off and that's a rest for your toothpick. Just like you have a rest for your chopstick, a rest for your bowl, a rest for your napkin.
Oh, interesting.
And so if you think about design, a lot of those signals come from nature, but also I think design is everything. I'm a designer by trade, so I haven't always been hanging around in brand technology, but my background is design. And I remember graduating, as much as 2023 was a year of AI, which has taken 10 years to get here, by the way, so it's not new. What's amazing about this is when I think about when I graduated from design, they said, look, Shingy, you've just graduated from probably an industry that's going to implode. I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, design is now dead. Why? Because there's this new TLA coming out called DTP. I'm like, what is that? Desktop publishing. So desktop publishing back in the, I'm aging myself, in the 90s was 16.7 million colors, 256 fonts. Everybody had an inkjet printer, and suddenly everyone's an expert designer. But the one thing that I've learned over time is that the industry took a slight dip, and then we ended up accelerating because design is not only alive and well, but people realize that they need taste. So design became an incredible accelerant of an industry. So when people panic over things like AI, my advice is calm down. It's just another tool, which has been here for quite some time. So don't stress about it, but use it to be powerful, because you are the first instrument. How you use those instruments to redesign the thing that you need to reflect upon is very powerful. And 9 times out of 10, nature plays a big part of that.
So that strikes on something we talked about earlier, is the idea of unlocking what separates humans from computers is our ability to think and be creative. Those two things, right, I believe, are central to human ingenuity and progress. So to your point, like how people can enhance their creativity and unlock their creativity without getting stuck on mundane things that their mind doesn't have to remember. The rudimentary things I need to know a map of how to get from here to there. Okay, I can use Google Maps or whatever. Just okay, that's one less thing I have to worry about. I can see it says it's going to be a half hour. It measures the traffic. Okay, now I can reverse engineer making sure I make my dinner on time. I mean, simple things. So I think the next level of what you're saying, what I'm interpreting, is the idea of taking technology and using it in human development, but it doesn't obfuscate the need for you and I to have an intelligent conversation.
True that.
And when there's areas that you're falling short, bringing the sports analogy, Nick Saban was talking about the capability gap, where someone is when they come into their program, and how do I get them to fill that capability gap? And I think that in all of human development, whether you're raising a child or you have a company and a business and you're trying to develop talent, everybody wants to raise their capability gap of what people are full potential.
Right.
So to the extent that people can use technology is great, but it doesn't obfuscate the need for us to be able to communicate more clearly in, at times, a carefrontational way.
I get it. And I love that term, carefrontational, but here's where I find it to be, here's a rub for me. And part of the challenge with efficiencies and tools, so I'm a designer and an artist by nature. So when I see tools that allow things to be much easier to be done, sometimes it irks me because I'm a craftsperson. So I love the craft of discovery. I love discovering new tools. I love the ability to allow those tools to make me more efficient in my time.
Louis C.K. says, the idea that, technology comes about so quickly, it takes away people's ability to think.
Right.
You're like, why even bother thinking? Like, I can ask Google.
Well, then what happens there, though, is we end up in a homogenized environment.
Yeah.
Now, I'm okay with that for the things that need to be, if things can be automated, they're going to be automated. Let's just live with that. It is what it is. So if you're sitting there thinking my job could be automated, guess what? It's going to be automated. So move on. And the challenge I find in a lot of environments where we use ourselves for personal expression is it's very homogenized, meaning this is the filter you use, this is the background you use, this is the way it's done, and all of that for the algorithms. And I find that to be very tedious, incredibly boring. Mm-hmm. So in the world that I live in, which is brand marketing, that becomes incredibly bland. So we're at an inflection point where I think technology can be used to punk, that I think the human brain, the ability to express, the way that we use our architecture of our self, so the ability to maneuver physically, also needs to be punked, because all of these efficiencies that we have, and by the way, the most rock and roll thing apparently is nature. That's the real punk here, because everything else is automated. Things that should be automated. AI is here for efficiency, and all of that, if we just lean into that for too long and you spend too much time in that field, just makes us homogenized. And when we end up with homogenized, it's all unified. And we need to express ourselves as humans differently, which is a total esoteric discussion to be had over drinks. But it's kind of it's just the entree to say that all these tools are here to make you efficient, great. But what they really need to do is give you the ability to get on with being a better expression and be more punk.
So here's the question about expression, because you're in marketing, right? The idea of authentic trust building, because there's a lot of marketing that's done to manipulate people's mind. But if you're building a business, whether it's a financial planning or wealth management business or a media business or a technology business, whatever it is, how do you authentically communicate your message and build your tribe and your brand and your community and your culture around that real authenticity that can resonate in the world of technology and be real? Because as you said, there's a lot of fakes and a lot of like misinformation, and people are cluttered.
Yeah.
And they don't know how to discern what's real, what's not, what's true, what's false.
Yeah. And, for 10 years, I've been thinking about the 3 legs of the stool
Yeah.
that brings all of that culture together. And we are really talking about culture. And what happens now is that every brand has outsourced their own ability to communicate with an audience that they believe is their priority to a third party.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's all the social platforms or all the entertainment platforms, that's where they're putting themselves, because they don't own it. They're putting their expression on that platform. Okay, we've agreed with that. But the challenge I find is that not every brand needs to be on across every single platform. And they sure as shit should not be doing the same content on every single platform and then flabbergasted when it doesn't perform. So what I love is the ability to dig into the platforms where they find best engagement, whatever those metrics are that you measure. I think, and by the way, for me, most of it's probably going to be comment. And secondly, the most powerful thing, though, in my mind, is to not play into the platform, because we're not about popularity. We're not all 11-year-old kids trying to be popular in the playground. We're actually building these real relationships. There are 3 things you just need to worry about. One is performance. Does it do what it says on the tin? So we've seen so many brands do this thing that say, sleep on it for 100 days. If you don't like it, return it. Buy one, get one free. That's all performance. Great. Subliminal or not, that's performance. And that's what the internet was really, really good at doing, founding that 25 years ago. The other flip side of that is story. Jonathan, you have a great story. That's a great architecture for trust. But the problem with that is if it's not done in a way that reflective of your feeling, like what does it feel like, then there's a mismatch. Let me explain. The moment you and I go and get in your car and you close the doors, you know that you're in a luxury vehicle. From the sound of the doors, the sound of the engine, the feeling of the leathers, it has a feel. The problem I find, and by the way, if we do the same thing in an economy car, you know what that feels like. It does what it says on the tin. Feel is the biggest opportunity when we think about connecting with people's trust digitally, which is where people think that persuasion is happening, and most people don't do it. Because what they're doing, they're building content to the platform. They're not building content to what I think their feel should be. So it's all about that discipline of saying, if I am this brand and I'm always going to be like this, and I don't care if people find it popular, I don't care if people don't comment on it, but this is what my brand represents, that will serve you incredibly well moving forward. It's just that your CFO is not going to enjoy that, because you may not get the metrics that they think are traditional in marketing, because we've been taught that it's about performance, and performance is just a metric of outcome. Interesting.
So let me ask another question, because this was on that topic of community building. We were talking about how we've connected the globe more than ever today, right? Because of technology, because of the internet, because of information in a tweet or whatever it's called nowadays. It scatters across the 8 billion people on the planet.
Yeah.
So the question I have in community building is, we might be raised, right? You're from Australia originally, if I remember correctly.
That's right. Yeah.
So.
Well, my brawny accent didn't give it away.
Yeah. But people might be raised in a certain culture, whether it's anywhere in the globe, with a certain value system, ideology, a certain cultural sensibility of
right.
of how you're supposed to behave.
Okay.
And the world is sort of melding together all these thousands of year old cultures and ideas that are meshing and conflicting and battling and fighting. And, the world is kind of forcing you to pick a side, red, blue, good, bad.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And
no shades of gray.
I have a great desire for myself and the community that I'm part of, and the people that I'm fortunate to come across, is to find common threads and to build on those common threads. Do you find that easier or harder in today's day of age of forcing to segment?
It's so much easier. And the reason why I would defend that is that I believe that niche is the new mass. So if you think about previously, we were in a broadcast environment to say it's about popularity, it's about broadcasting. We are moving to narrowcasting. So deep, intimate relationships that happen not en masse, but in the niche, because they're the things that people care about. Now, whether they overlap and become mass because you got enough of them jump together, fine. But you will find that you will have a deeper relationship when you find something of interest and something that is common. And it's interesting how you can start to understand what that looks like, particularly if you lean on things like folklore. If you talk about things that you learned from your grandparents or your great-grandparents, or what are those things that got passed on, or what are the things that you don't want to pass on that you have adopted from your parents, for example. All of that is true to the DNA, I believe, of humans. And there is common thread, but I also quite like the idea of discovery, dude. Not just in the world of digital, in the physical. I just got back from Costa Rica, so I'm still in jungle mode, but I'm incredibly uncomfortable in that much nature. But to go off into a path where you have no connection, physically, no maps, I had to orientate to things that make me incredibly uncomfortable to navigate out of the jungle. And that sense of discovery, which if you trust in it, nature will help you work your way out of it or kill you. You have to be at peace with that. And there's something really intriguing about discovery. So that's what's happening in these niches. So if you look at the popularity of some of these platforms, whether they're an entertainment platform like TikTok or a discovery platform like Reddit, it's in the subs, it's in the niches where people are finding engagement, controversy, connection, and all those things that mean that dwell time is going to be powerful. Oh, and gaming. Gaming's another whole place. That's a whole nother community. There are 3 billion gamers on planet Earth. So don't kid yourself. That is a massive audience that are all about their niche, So yeah, niche is a new mass.
Awesome. Well, I'm grateful. This is again our first experimental in person. Look at each other, look at the camera, whatever. So I'm grateful.
Well, we're just having a conversation now. You turn on a mic. I love that.
Yeah. We were talking. I was like, hey, can we record some of this? This is good stuff. So as you know, the concept I'm trying to get at is I'm trying to raise people's conscious awareness of the integration between people's wealth, they're growing and or protecting, and we know the fear and greed is catapulting everyone every day. The greed fear calculus, just to give you an idea, in case you didn't know this, is 2.5 to 1 people's response to fear over greed, and you'll see this in the election campaign too. Selling fear is much easier than selling greed.
Okay.
So fear is gonna evoke greater emotions. So my desire to raise people's awareness of that metric in wealth can lead you, in my opinion, to greater health and wellness, because you can create a better system design architecture around your own unique ability to breathe through whatever transpires this quarter, this year, the next 5-10 years, and design a life of your own. That can lead you to a higher level of thinking, to not get triggered by everyone on social media or in politics trying to get at your mind share, to pull at your levers, your emotional levers.
Right.
And that's a level of wisdom in all the books that I've read is true wealth, is being able to be like, I view this as like Jedi training. So with that said, what hack would you give for our audience that's blessed to hear your wisdom in the realm of technology the last 25 years that you can take in, that you think, you've talked a lot about nature, but, how do you think people should approach, or the wisdom you would give to your children or your grandchildren now, if they were to hear this, that you'd want them to take forward into 2024 and beyond?
Well, look, I think I would reframe the way that your masthead. And for me, that reframe of the masthead is you start with wellness, which in my mind equals wisdom, which ultimately equals wealth.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the other way around, dude. And that's the way that we set up society. But before we close out, and I know we need to, I have a question for you, which is, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given? Because you're the quote king. So give me something, and I don't want you to overthink it. Just give me your top of mind. What is the thing that's most interesting as advice to you?
The most interesting thing that's been top of mind for me has been the degree of self-awareness of first and second level thinking. And simply saying that is Yoda or Jedi myself.
Okay.
To see how my immediate response would be. And if I just pause at my first level of response to an interaction and think about it at a deeper level. If it's someone I love or someone I hate, let's say it's someone I hate or loathe, or someone that's saying something on the total opposite side of my belief system, to really deeply, deeply, deeply listen with compassion, empathy, love. We were talking about grandparents. Universally across the board, they talk that grandparents have unconditional love. If I approach every single person with unconditional love and deep listening and understanding, I could hear them with compassion, I might learn something. I might learn something. I might learn something rather than digging my heels and saying, I'm right, you're wrong. I could say, wow, that's an interesting perspective. I never actually understood that. And if I can hear you at a deeper level, then maybe you'd be willing to hear a perspective that I've learned or heard, and it could be right or wrong, but you can approach it in a more confrontational way with me.
Yeah.
And then we could find common threads to build a relationship, which I think part of life, as they did this Harvard study over 70 years, what makes people happy over 70 years? There's people that accomplish tremendous things. It's those meaningful relationships over the stretch of a lifetime that people were able to maintain. And for me, I think, building that bond of deep understanding and compassion is hopefully the foundation that you and I will be hanging in Costa Rica in 30, 40 years.
I mean, my best piece of career advice, or just life advice, was actually from a dear friend of mine when the internet was hating on me about a decade ago. And it was from a friend called Gavin DeGraw, a songwriter. And he just said to me, Shingy, just go where you're celebrated. And that just realigned my entire thinking then and there. And I've been there ever since. But I'm Shingy. This is John. This is his podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us. Subscribe to him wherever you can find good subscriptions. And you can find me on the interwebs. See you later.
Wisdom, wealth, and wellness. Go to Satovsky.com. And grateful for your sharing the time with us. And if you need financial advice, I got an amazing team that tries to take care of people for multiple generations, trying to provide wisdom, wealth, and wellness. Have a wonderful day.
Beautiful.
Have a great day. Ciao.
Satovsky Asset Management, hyper-personalized wealth management that has created joy and abundance since 2007.